Good chocolate. What's up, everybody? Hello guys, welcome to the channel. It's me, Merdan, again, and it's good to see your shiny, bright faces this beautiful day. So 2021 came, so Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a fun New Year day and New Year Eve. 2020 is finally gone. Yes, I can't wait for what 2021 is going to offer to all of us, and to me, I'm going to create a lot more than in 2020, so can't wait what will happen. So today I'm going to talk about these two things they call ND filters. ND filters are the circular filters for the lens that restricts and blocks the light, which makes the perfect exposure for the photo or video. It doesn't matter for both that situations, for both methods. They work pretty good. They are so handy. The ND filter that I got ND 1000, or otherwise it's called 10 stop filter. I got it for Christmas. It's for 55mm lens, and variable filter, ND filter for 58mm that I bought from Amazon by myself. These two things are very good, very handy and very cool, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how they work, why to use them, and etc. So let's get started. As we all know, there are three elements that control exposure, right? Aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. And ND filters gives more freedom changing that settings. It gives more control over that settings. So for example, in photography and video making, right? So for example, in photography, it allows to use wide open aperture, and like in previous my videos where I was talking about aperture, as we know that the wider we open the aperture, the lower the number, the f-stop number, right? The f and some number, the lower that number, the wider the lens open up, the more light is come in. So during the day, when you want to create the shallow depth of field, when the background is blurry and the object is on the focus, and when you want to create that during the day when it's super bright and you open up your aperture and it's even brighter, you know, you get overexposed photo. So you take your ND filter, you just screw it in on your lens and you take pictures with and it evens out the exposure. You get perfect exposure. You can even adjust that exposure with variable ND filters, or there are I don't know, I guess static, they call static ND filters that has like the same level of diminish of a light. So you put your ND filter in the lens and you get perfect exposure. Another thing that allows to do is to make a long exposure photos during the daytime again, which means lower, when you want to lower your shutter speed to get that silky water, you know, when the water is moving and the shutter speed is so low so that water looks like a silk, or clouds, when the clouds moving they look like a silk. If you want picture like that during the day, and again it's super bright, you lower your shutter speed, more lights come in because the shutter speed is slow. It's like, you know, it's slow and more lights come in. Overexposed, what do you need? You need ND filter. You put ND filter on your lens, and boom, you get perfectly exposed photos. So it's super handy. That's how it will help for any type of photography. For video making, which is I'm more excited, I don't know why, because it will let me to make more videos great like vlogs or b-rolls outside when it's bright outside. For videos it's super good because, so here's the thing, in the videography it's suggested to keep the shutter speed double the frame that you use. And I know this is the topic for separate video, and I will talk about all of that in a separate video, but I'm going to explain it here shortly. So for example, if you take a video in 60 frames per second, your shutter speed should be 1/25 of a second. And I know some of you think that I can't multiply or don't know math, and 60 times 2 is 120, but cameras don't have the shutter speed 120, so we choose the closest one, which is 125. And why we should keep the shutter speed the double frame? Because it creates that natural motion blur. For example, now I'm recording on 29.97 frames per second, approximately 30 frames per second. We double it 60, so I'm using shutter speed 60th of a second. So it creates this motion blur. If you take your hand and shake it in front of you, you will see that natural motion blur that our eyes, human eyes, are used to. So that's why we keep it the same. Now imagine that you again, when you are making a video right outside, super bright, and you again want shallow depth of field, you want background be blurry so it doesn't distract people from the video itself, and you can't control shutter speed, you can't increase shutter speed to get that perfect exposure because of that rule. And by the way, that rule calls 180-degree rule. If you want, you can Google it. So you use that 180-degree rule, you don't change your shutter speed, but you should change your aperture. Again, open up your aperture for that shallow depth of field, and again, you open up, more lights come in, overexposed video. Again, you put your ND filter and boom, it's perfectly exposed video. Great. All details are in there. It darkens that extra light that's coming in during the video, so it's very useful, very cool. I don't know, it's kind of universal thing for video and for photography. I don't know, just great. So I'm really pumped to have these two tools in my toolbox right now. And now I want to talk particularly about these two that I got, and to have an idea how they look like, you know, without these boxes. So let's just look at it. Let's do this little magic trick. 1, 2, 3. That was cool. So this one is ND 1000. This one variable ND. Two ranges from 2 to 400. Actually, I can control it. I can control, like if I screw this, see, I can control like the darkness. Hop. Let's first talk about this variable ND filter, and to show as an example, right? As an example, now it's all dirty. Never use your t-shirt to wipe out any lens. Use that fiber cloth, but so don't repeat after me. So to see how this work, let's I don't know, teleport outside. So see you outside, okay? Okay, we're in the street, and I just want to show how ND filter works. So I have ND filter right now on my camera, and you will see I'm turning it. It's on the minimum. It was on the minimum, now it's on the maximum, and you see how it controls the exposure. It makes the video darker. And if I go to minimum again, for example, I will show on I'll increase the ISO. Now see, super bright, overexposed. Now I'm just using my ND filter, and now it's perfectly exposed, I think. Yes, Now it's perfectly exposed. That's how it works. It blocks the light. So you saw how ND filter can block and restrict the light from coming into the lens and makes the exposure perfect. Like for real, you can make it perfect. So that was the ND variable ND filter that you can control. This one, by the way, great thing to use for videos and handheld photography. This one, because you can control, you can adjust the, like the level of diminishing the light. ND1000 is pretty dark filter, pretty dark filter, like super dark. So I suggest to use it with a tripod. That's what I read in internet too when I was googling it. So again, I'm just learner and I never used them, but I did a research. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and just to save your time, I'm explaining how this can be used. This better to use on a tripod with to take a long exposure photos. Another thing you can do with ND filter, if you have super wide aperture, if your camera is capable to open very wide your lens, for example apertures like 1.4 or f-stop 1.4, f2.8, if you have aperture that wide, like maximum wide width, right, then this one I think will be great to use. So these things are cool, very handy. I suggest to buy it to everyone who's into photography and video making. They cost like 34 bucks on Amazon. I suggest to buy this brand, Gobe, because a lot of photographers and video makers that I watched on YouTube, they use this brand, and there are a lot of good reviews on Amazon with this brand. So why? I'll explain. There might be two disadvantages due to the poor manufacture and poor design, so that you can have unpredictable color shift and vignetting around the video or photo. So it's very important to buy these kind of things from a good brand. I will probably leave links in the description where I bought these ND filters. So that's it. That's the whole video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Hit that like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and don't forget to share with your friends. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.